What's up, everybody? Welcome to this week's episode of the Well Man's Podcast. My name is Brian Brosey. I'm joined by my friend and co-host Keone Tita. Keone, how are you today?
I'm doing good. Thanks everybody for listening once again. Brian and I've been on a bit of a vacation, but we're glad to be back. Today, I want to talk about um, thyroid issues, specifically hyperthyroidism. And most of the time, hyperthyroidism is classified as Graves' disease. That's the most common diagnosis of hyperthyroidism. And one of the reasons why I want to bring it up, Brian, is because one of the things I did not realize about Graves' disease is there's a very strong correlation between having Graves' disease and having some type of infection, bacterial or viral,
Hmm.
right? I find that fascinating because one of the things that I'm seeing in my, like, especially since we've been through COVID, is that a lot of people are coming down with like hyperthyroid weird symptoms,
Hmm.
especially if they've had COVID.
Hmm.
So that's pretty crazy. And one of the main treatments, one of the reasons why I want to talk about it is if you're hyperthyroid, the treatment is basically we'll go through the details, but okay, let's just get rid of the thyroid and we'll keep you on thyroid medication for the rest of your life. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
I've
like,
seen
okay,
that.
well, that sucks. Yeah, right. Let's just get rid of the thyroid and we'll put you on thyroid medication the rest of your life. Um, there are reasons for that. I mean, I know I'm kind of over exaggerating this, and you're probably thinking to yourself, "Is that really true?" Well, no. It's like if it's bad and it's not being resolved, then that's the treatment that you're gonna get.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that they do that is they either remove it surgically or give you radioactive iodine. Which, by the way, if you're around a patient who has being treated for hypothyroid has taken radioactive iodine, you shouldn't be around them. Like, they actually tell patients, like, okay, we're giving you radiation, you can't be around anybody for a few days. Which,
Wow.
that's a scary thing, right? It's
Yeah.
like, all right, I don't want to. I can't be around my spouse because my thyroid is radiating
When I hold their hand, it burns.
radiation.
Yeah.
Right, and they're glowing, and now I'm starting to glow. But yeah, that is true. I've had a number of patients who had that done, and they're like, well, I really can't come in to see you because of what's going on,
Mm.
with my thyroid. But I just found it interesting that you know there is a there does seem to be a strong correlation between especially viral infections and hyperthyroidism. And then also there seems to be, although weaker, that this seems to be the case with COVID. Now, again, correlation doesn't mean causation, but there does seem to be a connection there. So I thought it would be good to go over it because there are some things that you can do naturally that can help, that worked well with conventional treatment. So anyway, if people don't know, the thyroid gland is a butterfly shaped gland that sits right here on your neck. Some people hyperthyroidism, the thyroid will get swollen. I call it the master gland as far as the master gland of metabolism. One of the ways it does that is that it secretes a, you know, um, thyroid hormone that just affects all the cells throughout your body, and then keeps your metabolism legit or optimized.
Mm-hmm.
On the opposite end of the spectrum is hypothyroidism. We talked about both hypothyroidism and hyperthyroidism on our podcast. I think it was podcast 76. So people can go to there, and then this is just going to go into more detail on hyperthyroidism. But I want to try to keep it brief because I know some of the comments we got, and then me and you are a little bit time poor. So some of the comments we got from people is like, come on, guys, keep it short, concise. I just want the information. So what are the signs and symptoms of hyperthyroidism? And again, with each of these signs and symptoms, think the opposite for hypothyroidism. But it's sudden weight loss. Think about increased metabolisms. You rapid heartbeat. Think about a stressed out state, somebody very stressed. Think about being so stressed that your hair is falling out, your nails aren't doing well, so thinning hair, nails, frequent urination, shortness of breath, sweating, nervous irritability. That all goes in line with not being able to sleep well. So those are the main signs or symptoms. One of the the ways that you treat it, at least initially, is with anti-thyroid drugs. These just inhibit the production of thyroid hormone T3. Thyroid hormone basically comes in two forms, T4, T3. The main bioactive form of thyroid hormone is T3. So T4 has to get converted to T3, and then that is the one that speaks to your cells to make your body optimize or to improve or to decrease metabolism. So that's kind of like the first stage of treatment. Then second stage is radioactive iodine. And basically that's destroys the thyroid gland. The way it works is you put a radiation tag on iodine, and your thyroid just loves iodine so much, just sucks it up. And while it's there in the thyroid, it just destroys the cells in the thyroid. And then over time, your thyroid no longer works. Then you have to be put on a thyroid hormone that you take exogenously. So your doctor would prescribe that for you. Another thing that you would do if that's not working, and sometimes it doesn't work, is you would just have surgical removal of the thyroid. And then also, there's various drugs to slow down metabolism. One of the big ones is beta blockers. So that helps control blood pressure and increase heart rate that can come with being hyperthyroid. One of the main problems with being hyperthyroid is that it can be life-threatening. And this is crazy because in 25% of the cases, especially when you have what's called a thyroid storm, it will kill you. In 25%, that's a high rate. That's a high kill rate,
Right.
even with proper treatment. So you want to get this treated right away. And this is not something I tend to mess around with. I will definitely tell people to stay on top of it with your endocrinologist or your doctor, get treated appropriately. And if we can, through natural treatments, then we can kind of get you off the medications and maybe just treat naturally. Because this is somewhat of some hope for some people who are dealing with this, is that a lot of times it can resolve on its own. But you don't want to be going through hyperthyroidism and not treating it in a way that keeps the symptoms down. You want to keep those symptoms down with treatment.
Right.
So anti-thyroid drugs is something that you want to do. And then other drugs like treating high blood pressure and increased heart rate are good, because the main cause of death is usually the heart is stroke due to high blood pressure, or the heart is just beating out of control, arrhythmia or something like that, and it gets erratic. That's what's going to cause the big problems. So I talked about Graves' disease. That's just one component of hypothyroidism. It's the main diagnosis, if you will, of hyperthyroidism, and it is considered an autoimmune disease. And so something happens, like either whether the person gets infected by a virus or bacteria, or they were exposed to something, or all of a sudden their thyroid just gets erratic for whatever case, maybe due to diet. It's almost like your with any type of autoimmune thing, your body gets discombobulated and sees the thyroid as being a foreign component. It's not part of your body. So your immune system will attack it and can cause all these aberrations going on. And sometimes, at least in the natural medicine world, anybody who has digestive issues or anything like that, leaky gut, it seems, and there's some research that says that this can cause your immune system to attack your thyroid. So a lot of my treatment is like treating the gut for it and making sure the gut function is good.
Yeah.
Anyway, those are the main things. Since thyroid is the master gland, and if you leave it untreated, and I know there's some people out there who just like their symptoms are very mild, but they still get problems periodically. It comes in waves. If you leave it untreated, you're asking for big problems, because you never know when your thyroid is going to shoot way above the norm and cause thyroid storm. And then also, if it left untreated, thyroid problems, especially if they're extremely elevated for a long time chronically, are going to eat away at your bones. You can become severely osteoporotic.
Mm.
It causes all kinds of organ issues. It's just not something you want to ignore. You want to have somebody on board that can help you take care of it.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's just a general overview, and I just want to go quickly through the kind of the natural treatments, because I know that's kind of the meat of why
Why we're
people are
here.
listening to us. All right, first of all, there's plenty of dietary considerations. One of them is we do know that vegetarians tend not to get hyperthyroidism, especially vegans. All right,
Hmm.
I know me and you are not advocates of being, vegan. There can be issues with that, but based on the studies, vegans are least likely to have hyperthyroid symptoms. All right.
Okay.
Um, People that are pesco vegetarians or lacto ovo vegetarians also are less likely to get it, but more likely to get it than people that are pure vegans, which is interesting. So that says something about eating a high vegetarian based diet.
Okay.
All right, and
You think it
then
says something
and
more about
then
that than consuming, I guess, animal products and what I guess what that could do to your gut health and so on and so forth?
yeah, it's I,
Chicken or
I
the egg?
mean, I think with animal, like people who overconsume meat and anything, we have a lot of research that shows that causes problems, right? There's a slight uptick in your risk of cancer. There's definitely a big uptick in your risk of creating a lot of inflammation. Again, I'm not saying this is high protein diets necessarily. I'm just saying like high animal product based diets just seem to give you more risk for hyperthyroidism for whatever reason. And it may be because of the inflammation. It may be because of the effects on the gut. It may be because eating a high animal based diet may cause dysregulation over time in your immune system, where you're more likely to get autoimmune stuff. Um,
Hmm.
so I tell people like and I have patients like this where it's meat three times a day with each meal, and it's like and no a very low vegetable based diet. And I will definitely, if they're dealing with hyperthyroidism, say you have to change something here. You have to get more plant based products in your diet to help. um it is interesting though that one of the treatments that I will do is I will tell people that we do know that there are lots of a high vegetable based diet, especially the cruciferous vegetables are very high in compounds called goitrogens. And basically what this does is help slow down the thyroid, especially if these vegetables are not cooked. So brassica family vegetables like cabbage, broccoli, kale, bok choy, they will help slow down the thyroid. If you cook them, you kind of take away those goitrogens. So having some raw cruciferous vegetables are good. I have some of my patients even do cabbage juice, which really does seem to help keep them out of danger and can really work well in conjunction with conventional treatments, especially if they're in a bad way. And then there's another tricky thing also. Hyperthyroidism, doesn't necessarily mean that you're low or high in iodine, right? So sometimes eating foods with iodine can really help. On the other hand, sometimes eating foods with iodine could put you in a thyroid storm. So what I'm saying here is sometimes your hyperthyroid symptoms are actually exacerbated by not having enough iodine. The problem is you have to be careful with that. Like you can't,
There's
if
a
you've been
Goldilocks
diagnosed with
level.
hyperthyroidism, you can't just go out and buy and eat tons of seaweed iodized salt or take the problem usually is with iodine supplements. And so I tell people like really really be careful with that. Like get
Right.
it under control, and then maybe you can try put some iodine into your diet, but at a very low level. Like I have one person that if she eats anything with iodine in there, takes any supplements, she will get heart palpitations and just feel like her heart is going out of control, and it's probably due to her Graves disease that's causing that. So I just want people to be weary of that. I definitely don't recommend people going out and doing that unless they have a doctor who can definitely have some objective data saying, yeah, you're low in iodine, you should probably do this, and this can probably help with what you're dealing with. So in general, if I don't know, I have people not take in iodine. I get them off their supplements until we can help them get stable.
Right.
Um, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but exercise. Exercise helps optimize the thyroid gland. I mean, that across the board. I mean, it does everything, right? But physical activity really helps. So, all my patients that have issues with hyperthyroidism should exercise, especially with hypothyroidism. The problem is if you're hyperthyroid, you'll see that your VO2 max or you have reduced exercise capacity. Is what I mean. Like you exercise shorter and feel more wiped out. And so you have to be careful about that, right? So
That's
you want to
interesting.
move.
I guess
Yeah,
you
you
just
want to move.
expunge everything really quickly, or like you kind of get
Yeah,
it
it's just
all.
like you're
You're just running at a high
yeah, it's
RPM.
all it well, it's yeah, it's just like it almost does something to where your cells just are not running optimally. You're just not oxygenating well. Your heart's not working well. And so you have decreased exercise capacity sometimes. Not
Hmm.
all, it just depends on how bad it is. But exercise does help normalize it as long as you're not doing too much too fast. You want to
Right.
kind of acclimate into it. Stress is a huge component that can exacerbate thyroid function dysfunction. I mean, everybody's experienced stress, and we know what that can do to the body. Just think about if you're really stressed, you have a hard time sleeping. Think about hyperthyroidism at a low level there. You
Mhm.
know, so stress is a big deal, and exercise helps reduce stress. So you feel like you're doing something. Cigarette smoking is definitely has some correlation with impact in thyroid function in a negative way. And I'll just leave it at that. There's some biochemical mechanisms for that, for how nicotine is metabolized, but it is due to nicotine and how it's metabolized and what it does as far as its association to thyroid antibodies. So smoking is not a good idea at all.
You don't say.
Yeah, yeah, for many reasons. All right, let's just go into supplements, and then we'll end it, because I know people will want to know what they can probably do on their own. And a lot of this maybe people haven't heard about. But one of
But
my favorite
Keone, before we
supplements.
get into the supplementation, you were kind of optimizing gut health, like in your order of operations here.
Yeah,
Optimizing gut health, obviously the basics of getting good sleep, eating a well balanced diet, getting as
right.
many of those vegetables in. I forget the B word, that vegetable family that you were mentioning,
Brassica family vegetables,
brassica family
yes.
of vegetables.
And Brassica family vegetables, which is cabbage, bok choy, broccoli, cauliflower, broccolini, broccoli rabe, that type of stuff. They're all related.
And then consistent,
Um,
regular. It seems like you would want kind of high intensity but short intervals of exercise, or just at least
yeah,
being
yeah. If
consistent with
if you can,
exercising.
right, if you can tolerate it, or at the very least, make go get, if for some of my patients, I want you walking 30 minutes a day if you can do it. That does help, and there's some good research on that helping with
And those are
thyroid
like
stuff.
your
So
your foundational, and then your supplementation would be next. Is that correct? That's how we're
yeah,
working through.
foundation. That's my foundational stuff, and then supplementation is next. And we've done a number of podcasts on gut restoration and stuff like that. So I won't get into too much on that, but sometimes that will include, like, okay, avoiding certain foods, right? Like gluten. There's
Hmm.
a correlation there with thyroid issues. Dairy, there's a correlation there that may exist. So sometimes eliminating that stuff. There sometimes there's a correlation with soy as far as helping. In fact, soy does have compounds in there that may help slow down thyroid. Although I've had some people who've had the opposite effect. So, I just tell people, like, go slow and acclimate slowly into that. It's like with medications. If you're somebody who reacts negatively to medications, you kind of acclimate slowly into it. And I would do the same thing with some of these dietary things that you can try where the information is iffy, like with iodine.
Just real
But yeah,
quickly,
those.
I'm sorry.
Huh?
Yeah,
Yeah, go ahead.
I know we mentioned it in, I think you said it was episode 76, 77, somewhere around there in the 70s. As far as what these people are going to be monitoring, like you're saying, start slowly and monitor how you feel. You monitoring any of these T3, T4 levels? What are we specifically monitoring along the way?
The main one is THS. TSH, I mean, thyroid stimulating hormone, right? And that is a a hormone that's secreted by your pituitary gland that tells the thyroid either to speed up or to slow down. If you have very low TSH, it means it can be diagnostic, depending on how low. It could be diagnostic of being hyperthyroid. Um, some of the people and then you want to look at that TSH number in conjunction with T3 and T4. Those are your thyroid hormones.
Okay.
And let's say that your TSH is very, very low, like it looks like you have hyperthyroidism. You can diagnose it, but your T3 and T4 are perfectly fine. Then that would be considered more subclinical hyperthyroidism. So there's an issue there, but those types of people generally are going to do better with natural forms of treatment, as opposed to jumping right into the conventional treatment. And then the other tests that we will run, and I'm glad you brought it up because it was just skipping through over all of this, but the other types of tests that we'd run is like doing the thyroid antibody tests.
Okay.
So do you have high levels of thyroid antibody? So that in conjunction with your low TSH, which is indicative of hyperthyroid, and with antibodies is definitely giving you an idea that you have hyperthyroidism or Graves' disease. And so with a lot of the natural treatments, if you want to give it time, and a lot of times I'm racing the clock with my patients where we know that you're scheduled to get your thyroid ablated, either removed, or we know that you are scheduled to get it irradiated.
Yeah.
You're going to do it in a few months. And in the meantime, you're being medicated. Let's see if we can bring your antibody levels down based on some of the natural stuff in time to where we can get you out of the danger so that you don't need your thyroid removed.
What's a
So
general
that
expectation of how long, when they meet with you, they get some of this information?
I like to
3
have
weeks,
them.
2 weeks to
I,
start
I
seeing those
actually I like to
levels?
have I'd like to have my patients tested every few weeks while they're going through me, their TSH at least. And
Hmm.
then I would like to, if they're not in danger, have them push back their stuff at least 3 months. I would like to see if we can reverse it.
Okay. So you're a 3 month expectation to see if this is going according to plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. If we can do it, if they're not in danger. Yeah. If they're not, if they're more subclinical or they're not having really bad symptoms, I want to see if we can reverse it before they actually go the surgical route.
Of course.
Because it's miserable. I mean, it could be very, very miserable and life threatening, sense of impending doom. You have your thyroid out of whack.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you just want to meet them where they are. So yeah, a lot of it is lifestyle stuff. So we went over.
So we got
Um,
that foundation, and then we move into the
yeah,
specific supplementation.
Yeah, so we got the foundation, and so specific supplements. One of them is L-carnitine, and L-carnitine is a combination of amino acids. It's a compound, but it's a combination of amino acids. And carni, it's really interesting. Carni is Latin for meat, right? So I just find it fascinating that we talked about, well, vegan diets seem to really decrease your risk of hyperthyroidism, but now here we have a compound that's only found in meat that seems to help the thyroid optimize it. But I will supplement with L-carnitine. It works pretty good according to the research, and I've seen it clinically. It works pretty good for whether you have hyper or hypothyroidism. So hyper, your TSH is low. Hypo, your TSH is high. And carnitine seems to be an optimizer of that. The issue I see with a lot of people who take carnitine for thyroid, they don't take enough. You got to dose it pretty high. I like to
Mm.
dose it. I like to dose it pretty high, like 3 to 6 grams
Oh
a
wow,
day.
yeah.
So you can go through that stuff pretty quickly. And I get a powdered form of it. So they're doing like, a teaspoon or two a day of the carnitine.
Right.
And it really does help. It does a number of things. It seems to help prevent thyroid storms. And then in combination, especially with another one that I don't want to talk about with selenium, it seems to have significant reductions in thyroid symptoms. And it seems to the research indicates that if you do carnitine along with some of these other supplements like selenium, you generally have a better chance of returning to baseline, your TSH returning to baseline, or becoming normal without the symptoms. So
Mm-hmm.
that's cool. The next one is selenium, and that is it's an essential micronutrient. It's very important for your thyroid. It is one of the minerals that helps convert T4 to T3. T3 is your bioavailable thyroid hormone, the one that actually does the work. And it's essential. It's found in Brazil nuts. Here again, here's another way to manipulate your diet. It's found very high in Brazil nuts. 4 Brazil nuts a day will give you about 200 micrograms of selenium. So you certainly don't want to eat bags of Brazil nuts. You can get way too much selenium if you do. But I generally recommend 4 Brazil nuts a day while you're going through this to get your selenium, or you take it in supplement form.
Mm-hmm.
It's found in cereals, found in mushrooms. It's found in, and again, it's found in certain fish in high amounts, like sardines, tuna, halibut. But it's a potent antioxidant, and it converts T4 to T3. It plays a very important role in just in protecting the thyroid from oxidative stress. So again, an autoimmune condition of your thyroid is creating a lot of oxidative stress. Like slowly but surely, that autoimmune condition is destroying your thyroid. So selenium's a big one that I'll combine with thyroid hormone. Oh, we get into these podcasts, it's always something else I can think about. But one of the things with one of the main symptoms of hyperthyroidism, I don't know if you learned this in med school, Brian, but it's like somebody who has hyperthyroidism, for some of them, a high percentage of them will have like these bulging eyeballs,
Yeah.
or wait, okay, you see it, or you can see the whites around their eyes all the way around.
Mm-hmm.
That is indicative of Graves, ophthalmopathy, and that also is mainly indicative of selenium subclinical deficiency. So sometimes just supplementing with selenium can improve that,
Yeah, that
and
visual
improve
piece.
your eye movement, where it's not so swollen or anything like that. It's almost like your eyes are being pushed out a little bit
Yeah.
from the autoimmune component. And so that's kind of interesting. But that is another symptom of Graves. Another one that just seems to be a homeostatic. It's a hormone, vitamin D, that just helps all the body. But the deficiency of vitamin D is strongly associated with autoimmune thyroid disease, like Graves. But it's both. It's any type of autoimmune, but especially Graves. So it can be Hashimoto's, which is hypothyroid generally, and then Graves, hyperthyroid. So your status of vitamin D is huge. I usually put all my patients on at least 5,000 IU of vitamin D. Of course, we test to see, but again, generally, I don't think I've seen any of my thyroid people, whether hypo or hyper, that were not subclinically deficient or outright deficient in vitamin D. So I put them on that. So that's one of my tests that I run. Besides TSH, I'll run the 25 hydroxy vitamin D test, plus the T4, T3, and the antibodies to see. But so vitamin D is huge there. CoQ10. CoQ10 is one of the main supplements that just help optimize mitochondrial function. It's especially concentrated in the heart muscle cells. I use it for almost all heart issues. But we also know that hyperthyroidism, it puts a tremendous amount of stress on the heart. So it may not be treating the thyroid directly by doing this, but you are helping preserve heart function, right? And so we know that if your heart is erratic or is beating too hard, or your blood pressure is too high and it's sustained, you can become you can go into congestive heart failure very easily. CoQ10 has shown to improve cardiac performance and delay any of that. And so CoQ10's, it's not my top tier for thyroid because it works indirectly, but it's a good one to do. We also know magnesium levels are found low in hyperthyroid patients. Kind of makes sense, right? Like if everything's elevated, it's like your you have rapid turnover of all this stuff. Think about your bones being reabsorbed, the minerals taken out. That's what's happening actually. You're like your bones are highly turning over, and you're urinating out a bunch of stuff. And if you don't do something about it, it's going to be issues. Well, it's not just calcium that's an issue. It's also magnesium. So I just want people on a little bit of magnesium. It does seem to have a more direct impact on improving thyroid function than, say, CoQ10, which is more, I think, about for the heart. And then the last one I'll talk about before I get into a couple of the herbs is just vitamin E. And there's vitamin E has many tissue effects in the body, but it does seem to, at least in animal studies, improve thyroid function. So in rat studies, it was great. And then this is really interesting, that when it's combined with my favorite anti-inflammatory, is curcumin, it works even better. So that's another one. And then I use some herbals. I'll have people get herbal teas that actually directly have an impact on slowing down the thyroid. So one of the main ones is lemon balm, Melissa officinalis. It's a calming herb. It treats anxiety and insomnia. I use it for sleep. And it seems that the research shows that it may help prevent binding of Graves' disease associated antibodies with the thyroid, right? So so these things are not bind to the thyroid, causing problems. So lemon balm seems to prevent that. And lemon balm, you can drink that all day, pretty much. I mean, it's not you're not going to have problems with doing that.
Right.
And it's a nervine, so it's not going to be like a narcotic where you're drinking a ton of lemon balm tea and walking around in a daze and confused, So, and then there's another one called bugleweed, Lycopus, is the Latin name, Lycopus europaeus, and it's a European herb, as the name implies. And again, it's been used for centuries in improving thyroid function. And again, it inhibits these autoantibodies from impacting the thyroid. So those are the main things. There are other herbs that I'll use also in combination to help with that. But this is kind of the protocol I'll use for hyperthyroidism. I know that was a quick overview of things, but that's the gist of it. And I just wanted to make sure that we did that, because I don't think we did it justice with our podcast 76 on, where we talked a little bit about hyperthyroidism. And not to mention, since we've been through COVID, I see a lot of people coming in with thyroid functions. Also, this just may be me, but it does seem to bear. I know I'm going to get shit for saying this from our podcast, because I know there's a lot of people who are this way about the vaccine, but it does seem like the people who are not vaxxed, who haven't been vaxxed, have more issues with hyperthyroidism. So it's like, if you're not vaxxed and you get, if you're not vaxxed and you get COVID, you're more likely to have hyperthyroid issues. Again, it's correlation, not necessarily causation. So I think the research will bear that out soon.
Right.
So anyway, with that being said, do you have anything to add to that?
No, that's it. I think we should do maybe another one. If we can sum it up quickly here, I guess maybe what's the for me, it seems like you do kind of, like I hinted to, like you do kind of have to work out hard to burn some of this stuff off. But like we've been going through with this whole podcast, there seems to be a Goldilocks position for everything.
Yeah.
And it's same thing when you're mentioning like this high bone turnover rate. In my mind, it's like, oof, well, you better do some heavy lifting to, increase that osteoblast production, build the bone back.
Right.
So it seems like, you really just got to find this fine Goldilocks position with the working out.
I
where
can
physical
tell you this,
therapist
Brian,
comes into play.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you this. I don't know. I haven't experienced, and again, my experience is limited here with hyperthyroidism, especially compared to an endocrinologist. Same with yours, but I haven't seen anything like where somebody has been brought into like a thyroid storm where they did intense exercise, right, by itself. Okay. So I think if you went to the gym, like I think you're kind of implying, and you did like a bone building workout, you're doing squats or plyos or something like that,
Yeah.
like kind of stuff you have maybe your osteopenic or osteoporotic patients do. I just don't see that as being an issue if you're having hyperthyroid. I wouldn't be worried about them going into a storm based on exercise alone. The only thing I see is that they may not be able to get through their workout as intensely or readily without feeling fatigued quicker.
Right.
You know, that's
Okay.
all.
Yeah.
So I don't think, unlike supplementing with iodine, the Goldilocks point, that you do have to be more aware of that if you're going to think about, well, maybe this person is low in iodine.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to run more tests and then also ask more questions of the patient, take a history, like have they been on a low iodine diet a lot, or are they in a area? There are areas in the world where iodine is just not readily available. Like if you live in a coastal area and you eat fish and stuff, you're probably going to get a lot more iodine, right?
Right.
But if you don't, and you live in an area of the world that doesn't have that, or an area of the world where the soil is not high in selenium, yeah, you may have more issues with your thyroid. So a lot of that you have to play a role. I don't ever want to put somebody like I know of like healthcare providers who are like, oh, with any thyroid condition, or I've heard it at least, you just give them iodine. I think that's a very dangerous thing to do. You know,
Yeah.
when we're talking about hyperthyroidism, your thyroid sucks up iodine. That's why you can diagnose it by putting radiation tags on the iodine. It just goes straight to your thyroid.
Right.
That's also another reason why, God forbid, if we had a nuclear attack, one of the first things you want to do is take potassium iodide. It all
Mm-hmm.
goes to your thyroid and protects it. It's the gland that is most sensitive to radiation, right? So
Yeah.
by filling up your thyroid with potassium iodide, again, this isn't radiated labeled, but by filling your gland up with that, you protect your thyroid from being destroyed by low levels of radiation. So anyway, it's a good question. It is. You do have high bone turnover, and I even recommend, like, if you got your thyroid removed, and you do have to be on thyroid hormone there for the rest of your life, even low levels can cause over time osteoporosis. So it's very, very important that you do bone building exercise if you're on thyroid hormone.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
most people are on it the rest of their life. So anyway,
Combine this with
anything else?
76 and get a full rundown.
Yeah.
Awesome. Anything else, Keone?
Yeah.
I've got nothing.
No, I
I
think
gotta
that's
go.
it. Thanks, guys, for listening. Sorry we've been away for so long.
We will talk with you soon. Be well.